Ooh, shiny. New front dampers for the 25. They don't look big enough. They look tiny. I hope they fit. Let's go and stick them on. Don't forget your stands. Because the van's jacked up in the air and the suspension is dropped down as long as it goes, it may well be that the travelling suspension is longer than damper itself. So effectively it's hanging on that, so there's tension in that damper. So what I've basically done, just to be sure, I've put a little scissor jack underneath the arm. I've jacked it up by about 5-10mm just to take any tension out of that length there. And hopefully when we come to take the damper out, there's no tension in that joint anymore. Okay, it's at this point you might be a bit in trouble because you're going to need a 22mm socket. It makes it easier if you've got an extension, just a medium extension, and your ratchet or your bar. That just makes it easier to get past the anti-roll bar. The other side is the access to the other half of the bolt, and you're going to need another 22mm socket. Now, I didn't even know I owned this until today, so I just found it in a kit, luckily. But I couldn't find anything else that would fit on a 22mm. Even the spark plug spanners are just a fraction too small. So if you haven't got two 20mm sockets and it wants to spin, you say you could be in trouble. A 24 will go on it without spinning, but you can't put too much pressure on that before you start losing corners off your bolt. So yeah, just bear that in mind before you start this job. Two 22mm sockets could be handy. Alright, fingers crossed this isn't going to work on yet. Not too bad. Yep. Top nut on this one is a 17mm, and I'm going to hold it still with a little 6mm spanner and a little tab at the top, hopefully to stop it from spinning. So one nut off, and top washer, and one destroyed, nasty looking rubber. I say washer, looks like someone's used a part from an angle grinder. Must have been shorter washers, that's crazy crackers. Smaller screwdriver, just going to poke it through. Now I'm very lucky that it's not seized up solid in there. It can be. Hold on to the damper, in case it drops. So it looks like it needed a bit of copper grease on that, so I was fortunate really. Hopefully the damper should just release, which it does. Ta-da! There you have the protective sheath which goes over the damper, so it protects the piston part, and at the top here is the bump stop. Now my van's actually being lowered, I think about 70mm. I don't actually know what size springs are on it, I'll be perfectly honest, I've not checked yet. But it's fairly low, and we were bouncing down the motorway quite badly, so I'm replacing the dampers because they're pretty knackered anyway, and I'm actually going to cut this bump stop back, so it's broken already anyway, so I'm going to take the bottom two rings off, move up the protective sheath so we've got a little bit more travel before we hit the bump stops, and go at that. As I haven't got a replacement bump stop to fix this one anyway, so it makes sense to give it a try while it's off. So, when you buy a new damper, the only thing that comes in the kit I bought at least is a new nut, so the top nut. So that means you're going to need to keep this off your old one. So you put your sheath on, you're going to need your metal ring back on there. The bushers did not come with the dampers. These cost about £5 each extra, so not cheap. And I say if they don't come with your dampers, you're going to need to order them separate. They obviously go down over that metal ring. I've then found a proper washer from the garage. It's from a Beetle one, but I'm sure it'll work quite well. That should go on there, and then we'll put our new nut on. But before we do all that, I'm going to cut down the bump stop, and we need to prime the damper, so we'll do that in a second. Okay, now the fun bit to get the bump stop back inside the sheath. So I've cut a little line just on this edge down here. I'm hoping with a bit of grease on there I can basically fold the first part in and twist it in. A good arm workout. There we go. So I've got a short bump stop on it, just 2 rings, and it's also on the inside as it should be. So before you fit your new damper, you want to prime it. So basically all you have to do is pull up the piston and push it back down. I usually did that about 5 times, just to make sure there's no air bubbles in there. Okay, new damper on. So I've extended the piston out just a bit. Put the bump stop and the protective sheath on. That should now feed up from below, if I've not made it too long. Through the centre of the spring. There we go. Okay. Just going to put a blob of copper grease on the threads. Hopefully stop anything seizing up in the future. Over that, we're now going to put our new bush and metal insert in the centre. Our proper bush retainer washer, whatever they call it. And just hold it in place with the top nut, a brand new nut. I've cleaned up the bottom bolt, so it's nice and clean, took all the rest off it and the threads are good again. I used a wire brush, but I used a mechanical one actually, but any should do. And I'm going to liberally put a bit of copper grease on there, hopefully stop things from seizing in the future. And if you've got the bottom of the damper lined up, you should just be able to feed it straight through. There we go. So it's gone through one side, it's not quite lined up with it yet. There we go, rock and roll. It's a bit fiddly getting the nut on, because you can lose it inside the arm. The bolt wants to go inside the socket as well. Come on. There we go. Before you crank it up, just try and centralise your damper in the middle of the spring and middle of the holder at the top. That's starting to get tight and the bushes are starting to deform, so it's crushing. The nut feels pretty tight as well. It's a nylock, so we don't have to go crazy. And the bush, I say, is spread to the outer edge of this washer, so I think I'm pretty happy with that. If you want to do this properly as per the manual, the top nut needs to be tightened to 22 foot-pounds. Now, I don't think I can get my torque wrench in there to do that properly anyway, and it feels it's probably around that anyhow, so I'm relatively happy with that as it stands. The bottom nut, or the bottom bolt, should be tightened to 111 foot-pounds. So if you've not got a torque wrench, you might want to crank that one up. Cheers guys, I hope you found that helpful. Take care.